And today's question, what we're going to be talking about, is probably the hardest one that I've been challenged with the last 15 years that I've been in leadership. And it's probably the most challenging question that we have to face, just as a society, but as a human, as a leader, as a husband, or whatever position that you find yourself in. If you're listening to this, you are a human and you do have beliefs. Hey, welcome back to this episode of the Success and Significance Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Newman, and I am honored that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with me today. I know your time is valuable, and I honor the fact that we are here together. We're in a 3-part series. Last podcast, what you heard about was 3 practical questions that we're asking ourselves on how to become successful so we can pour out significance. And last episode, what we did, we dove into the first question, which is, who am I? And who am I is rooted in your identity. We went over a couple practical ways to where you can start really diving in and figuring out who you are as a human. And it also then tees you up for the next question to what we'll be diving in today. So if you did not listen to the Who Am I episode, press pause on this. I promise you we'll be here when you come back. Go listen to that episode and then come back to this one. And today's question, what we're going to be talking about, is probably the hardest one that I've been challenged with the last 15 years that I've been in leadership. And it's probably the most challenging question that we have to face, just as a society, but as a human, as a leader, as a husband, or whatever position that you find yourself in. If you're listening to this, you are a human and you do have beliefs. And so either you are deciding what you believe or someone else is deciding what you believe. And I think that this question, the reason it's so hard is because we are inundated with so much technology. We're inundated to where before, even with this podcast, before you used to take years and years and years to gain the authority to be able to speak into someone's life. Well, social media changed all of that. It changed the game, which is great. We're at the inflection point of this world to where anything that you want to know between the existence or the creation of AI all the way to like Google, we are growing up in a world to where we have information constantly and beliefs are constantly being pushed down our throats and in our face. And this is not a podcast about hitting on the social media people. They're really good at what they do and they're very successful. And so it's our job. How do we navigate all the stuff that the world is telling us what to believe? And so for us as humans, I think that it's the hardest question, but this question also, what we believe, it has to do with our principles, our core convictions. And I think that it's the fact of how it shows us how we see the world around us. And that's why these questions are so hard. And the other thing about beliefs is that your beliefs come from your past a lot of the times. So if you're listening to this and you had a great childhood, I was very blessed. I had an amazing childhood. My parents ended up staying together. They're still together. They're celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. I grew up in the church, and I chose to leave the church after a little bit, but I ended up coming back to the church. But I had a good upbringing. We didn't have a bunch of money growing up. I know that there were some times to where we ate the same thing over and over and over again. I got bored, but I've never been hungry. I've never experienced parents being divorced. Our family had past history of pediatric cancer. So if you've been following me for any time, I'm a childhood cancer survivor. I also lost 2 first cousins to this horrible disease. And like your beliefs are dictated by your past. But also your beliefs can be created by your future as well. Your beliefs create your future. Let me say it that way. So yes, all of us have some baggage. All of us have some beliefs. But then if we can hone in to really identify the core principles and the convictions that we have, it can set us up for better success in the future, which will then lead us to the next question of where you're going, helping set the goals. And also the beliefs will help you point to a more stable future. And so you may be listening to where you grew up in the household to where your dad or mom was an alcoholic, or that you grew up to where you couldn't afford the food at the table to where you had to get some food from the lunchroom. Like, those things are real. And I believe that those things, they leave scars, right? But those are also the fundamental things that have helped shape your beliefs. So how do people find beliefs? The belief systems, a lot of them find beliefs through religion, which I choose to. Some people, they believe their belief system is their moral compass. What they believe is right. What they hear on media is right. And then also you have your philosophical beliefs, like the galaxies and how everything aligns, karma, all of that stuff. That's a certain type of belief. And I'm not saying that those are wrong. I'm just saying that the beliefs that you have, if they go unchecked, more than likely your belief system has come from your past, which is dictating your future. And for me, mine are coming from my past, and I had a good past, which then set me up for a positive future to help me kind of grasp what I believe. But if you're coming from a negative past, then this is extremely important for you to not to continue to carry that baggage all the way through. And they're real. I'm not going to pretend that they're not real. There's a lot of great people out there helping people navigate some of the past. But the belief system for me is, if you were to ask me, if you run into me, I would be able to answer these three questions at any given moment. It's because I've been working on these three questions for the last 15 years. And so, are there experiences, if you're listening to this podcast, are there experiences or moments in your life that have shaped your belief? So do me a favor, if you're driving, then just take some mental note. But if you're listening to this and you're sitting down, I just want to ask you a couple questions that will help you clarify your core beliefs as a human. What are some of the past experiences that have shaped your core beliefs? Now, if it's from your past and it's too painful to go through, I truly believe that, again, going back to believe, I believe that your pain points to a purpose. And I did this exercise not too long ago, and I do this exercise probably once a year just to make sure that my beliefs are in order. I also encourage you to reflect on those past experiences and write down. If you can remember a past experience, write it down, and then was it positive or negative? And then from that, just why? So for me, being a childhood cancer survivor, I wrote down childhood cancer survivor, and I put negative down. Why was that negative? At the end of the day, I lost 2 cousins to this disease, and I saw the turmoil that pediatric cancer did to my mom, my dad, my aunts, my uncles. And so cancer was a huge thing in my life that shaped a belief. And to be totally honest, for the longest time, and I still struggle this right now, and that's why I have to keep this thing in check, is I for the longest time believed that cancer was going to come back and take me out. And so that belief, just in that, something that happened to me at this point, to where I finally realized that cancer was the past was causing this to dictate my belief, is it was 25 years after I was cured from cancer, and I carried around that belief for the longest time. And now I still fall back into some of that sometimes, but that's the significance of constantly evaluating what you believe as a human. And so now I can tell you that cancer is no longer my prison, but it's my platform. And so either it was a positive experience or a negative experience. It can either be your prison or it can be your platform. And that's why this question is so hard, because you have to dig deep. You have to dive into some of the things that happened to you in your past that will evaluate and elevate to show what you're believing, and then writing that down. And then we can set the tone for what we believe in the future. And I believe that cancer is not my future. I believe that I'm an amazing husband that was put here on this world, that no one can love my wife better than I can. I believe that I'm the best tickle monster for my kids, and no one else can do it better than me. I believe that God has put me here for a time such as this to love and serve the pediatric cancer community. And so that's what I mean by prison and platform, where before I believed that cancer was going to come back and get me. I believe that my life was limited, so I'm going to work hard, party hard, and play hard, and that's what I did. And if that's you listening right now and you're in that stage of working hard, partying hard, and playing hard, good for you. It's fun for a little bit, but that started to shape my beliefs of who I was becoming for the future, and that's not what I believe. I also believe that money is extremely important, but money is not everything. And so you have to have money to be successful. Now, hear me, we determine our own success, but I've had zero money and I've also had a little bit of money, and I would choose having a little bit of money over being broke every single time. So I do believe that money is super important. It's what you do with the money that truly matters. And I also believe if I can beat cancer, there's nothing in this world that I can't do. So I need you to do me a favor. I need you to reflect on the things that have happened to you in your past to be able to help you with the future. So, all right, we've talked a lot about the past. You're like, all right, Eric, I hear you. I got some baggage. I got some stuff that I just need to process through. But to tell you the truth, I'm too busy. I don't have time to go to the past. I'm so focused on my future, which if that is you, that's great. But I am telling you, until we can wrestle with some of our past, it is always going to continue to dictate our future. It's either we use it for the negative or the positive. So I would ask you that, are your beliefs in line with your actions? So I just told you a couple things that I believe: that I'm an amazing husband. I believe that my kids are the most important thing to me in the world. So if I'm saying this to you, do my actions align with what I truly believe? And so for me, there came a time to where my wife and I had a very hard time navigating our marriage because I was spending 70 hours a week at the office. And when I would come home, I was a horrible human. And life is hard. Life is super hard. But I had to make the stance and I had to make the priority that your beliefs are geared into your values, and they're a set of principles that help you guide your day-to-day life. And so her and I sat down and we wrote down a couple things of like, okay, who are we as a couple? What do we believe as a couple? And so for me, I was still, from some of my past, I believed that I needed to be the big shot in the room. And that's not the case to where I am now. Like I wanted the money still. And this was even still when I started a nonprofit organization to where I was changing the world for everybody, right? And everything on the outside was looking good, but I still had some of those core beliefs that were dictating some of my actions, which I was staying out late. I wasn't, every Saturday I was missing my daughter's soccer games, and I was missing all of this stuff to where I would say on the outside, like, I believe I need to be the best dad, but I was missing a lot of things. But if you're listening to this and you are in your entrepreneurial startup to where it's super hard, there's a time and a reason and a season for everything. But I do believe that there is a time and a reason and a season. Just don't get stuck in there. And I hope that you have someone around you that can help you dictate some of the beliefs that from what you are able to do, I do hope that your actions are able to match your beliefs. So what is it that you need to do to better align yourself? And if it's, what do you need to do to just even stop to think about what it is that you truly believe as you're listening to this podcast? If you believe that the world's going to end in 2050, then that's good for you. For me, I hope that this life continues to go on. But if you're stuck in a negative belief system, that's a trap. So how do you get out of that trap? Well, you start by and this is going to be some common principles that you're going to hear. You need to pull out the journal, write down, what do I believe? And then from that, what are some actionable things that have happened into your life that you can write down, write a positive or a negative on either side of them. And I would encourage you, most people want to camp out on the positive side. I would encourage you to spend a little bit of time on the negative, because by spending time with the negative and being able to figure out actionable steps, the best thing, and my daughter used to watch this movie all the time, Frozen, there is a key song in there to where it's Let It Go. Now, I'm not talking about some people have some serious things that they're dealing with. I would highly encourage you. This is not a mental health, psychiatry type of podcast. This is just something helping you. If you have some serious things that are going on, I would highly encourage you to go talk to someone, to speak to a counselor, to go to a psychiatrist, because the way that I look at that, it's gotten a bad stigma over the years, but I don't. I look at it as it's oil maintenance on the car, right? Imagine you drive a car and you never change the oil. What happens to the car? It breaks down. It starts smoking. It does a lot of stuff that it's not supposed to do. So if you're one of the people that you're dealing with some pretty heavy stuff, I highly encourage you to go speak to someone that can help break off some of those chains, that to where you can move forward in finding out what you truly believe, because then once you find out what you believe, then that's going to dictate what you value. And what you value most is what you're going to prioritize, and what you value most is what you are going to fight like hell for, to fight for success. So I'm fighting right now for legacy for my family. I'm fighting right now for kids fighting pediatric cancer. So what you value most and what you believe is what you're going to fight for the most. And if you truly believe something, then at the end of the day, it will help you push the ball forward. And as we conclude on this podcast, I started it out earlier telling you that this is probably the hardest question that I've ever had to ask myself. And the reason I think the significance behind this is because there's so much to unpack. And I'm trying to unpack this in 15-minute increments, which I've been trying to unpack this for the last 15 years. So I'm trying to condense everything down. And I think the biggest thing for me, as you're starting to navigate what it is that you truly believe, you're either influenced what you believe or you make the decision with what you believe. And so for me in this scenario, I think deciding what we believe, the way that we can sum all this up is that you have to decide, you have to take priority. This has to become a priority, and you have to unpack some baggage to be able to clean out some area to where you can start making room for the future. And so how do you make room for the future? You're like, all right, Eric, I've done this process. I've gone through, wrote down the good things and the bad things. Now, how do I determine what I believe as a human? And the hardest part is I can give you some practical steps, but you have to decide what you believe. Well, how do you decide what you believe? What do you value the most? Where do you find the value in life? And then from there, start seeking it there. And so for me, I've said this a couple times on the podcast, like I believe in Jesus. I believe that, yes, he did come. He died for my sins. And I'm not pushing, it's against my religion to push my religion on anybody. But I am telling you like what I believe as a human, to where there's freedom when you truly believe that you've been forgiven. So some of you all that are listening, like you may have done some wrong, right? So maybe some wrong has been done to you, or that you've done some wrong to humans. I think in this whole belief system, trying to figure this out, I do think you got to give yourself a little bit of grace. And where I find grace is knowing that I serve the God of the universe that loves me, that sees me as an actual child of his, to where I can charge as hard as I can, to be able to then, when I do make mistakes, trying to figure out what I believe in this world, because it's such a fast-paced world, that I know that I'm forgiven. So in this, like really dictating, figuring out what you believe, like forgive yourself. But then also I would encourage you to forgive if someone's wronged you. How do we figure out how to forgive them? And that's super hard. And that's why this question is so hard. But writing down your values, writing down what you value the most. So for me, I value my faith. And what I believe is I was put here on this earth to pour out the love of Jesus, to be able to impact my family, the pediatric cancer community, and anybody that God puts in my place to be able to just speak life into, is what I truly believe. And having that belief has helped me make decisions. It has helped me say yes to certain things. It's helped me say no to a lot more things. And I want you all listening to be able to figure out what you believe, because it's coming at a very fast pace. The world is coming at us at a very fast pace. And if you're not able to decide what you believe, someone else is going to decide for you. And I know that this podcast probably seemed a little bit heavier than what maybe you're used to. But like I said, this is the hardest one. So I hope that you've enjoyed some of the stuff that you're learning, some of the practical things. Writing down the information, writing down what you believe will help you create a better tomorrow. And so from that, I'm going to leave you like I leave you every single time. It is our job to fight for success, to pour out significance. I'm your host, Eric Newman. Click the subscribe button, share, and I will talk with you soon. Thanks.